Congratulations, standard levels, you've made it to the end. This is the last one. So it is biochemistry and the environment, and these other things we need to cover. So, first of all, the definitions. Xenobiotics are chemical compounds that are found in a living organism, but which are foreign to that organism. And there is another word called POPs, persistent organic pollutants, that remain in the environment for long periods of time. So we have bioaccumulation, pharmaceutically active compounds, PACs, and non-biodegradable plastics. So bioaccumulation, first of all, the most famous one is DDT. That pesticide there would build up in the tissues in increasing percentage, and so that by the time it moved itself way up to the food chain, its concentration was actually quite high in these other animals. I think that made their eggshells quite thin, and so they were breaking, and so they couldn't reproduce, and so the bird numbers plummeted. So this is also an argument for eating, because plants can also can also go through bioaccumulation. Certain plants can take in toxic chemicals at certain different rates, so it's heavy metals and so forth. So eating food on the very lower trophic levels, such as just the producers, eating plants, that's an argument, and it's certainly an argument against eating animals and eating animals higher up the food chain from a health perspective, and that's the chemistry behind it. So bioaccumulation of mercury. So the next one is pharmaceutically active compounds. So we've found that various plastics and plastic compounds released into the water can act in the same way as various hormones, and these in this particular example, these hormones are preventing the fish from having male species, and so not being able to reproduce, and so getting rid of the species that way. So that's a xenoestrogen. All right, because it's an artificial compound found in living organisms. And the last one, which is quite famous, is non-biodegradable materials such as plastics, this particular case clogging up the digestive system of marine life. How do we solve these problems of xenobiotics? Amelioration. There are three things. So we can introduce chemicals to get rid of them. We can make these chemicals biodegrade and break down, and we can use enzymes to break them down. So let's look into these things a little more. So this guest molecule can be bound up into a supramolecule and removed using a host molecule. Importantly, what they want you to know is that these are non-covalent interactions. Van der Waals, I really should get rid of that word altogether, is London dispersion forces and dipole-dipole bonding, ionic bonds, hydrogen bonds, and hydrophobic interactions, and so they grab onto those molecules that we don't want. So an example here, these are like zeolites. So this is the radioactive cesium, and so this would just be in like a filter. So you'd say if there was a nuclear reaction with radioactive cesium in the water, you'd filter the water through this material, and it would grab onto the cesium compounds, and then you'd store them somewhere else so they couldn't hurt people. Okay, biodegradable materials. The one way of creating molecules that can be broken down. In the lab, I like to use the converting potatoes into plastic. That's a great lab if you're interested. And so that will break down and is far less harmful to the environment. This is one that's going a little crazy too. And so we've actually found microorganisms that eat plastic. That's new since this syllabus was created. We've known about ones that can break down oil, and using real enzymes, lipase and protease, in our cleaning products is obviously the way to go, because that is a well-known system. It's part of the biological system, and it gets broken down. These foreign things that we create sort of freak out nature, and they don't know how to deal with them. All right, so last of all is green chemistry. Now this is the end-all answer to everyone who constantly asks for IA topics. How would you save the world? Green chemistry. Okay, minimize the use and generation of hazardous chemicals. There are many ways here. Atom economy is one they like to focus on. So I'll just jump to that first. So atom economy uses the ratio of masses. So what you have is the mass of the desired product divided by the mass of the reactants. So obviously if all of A and B goes to C, that's 100%. But if you have A and B goes to C and D ends up as waste, then when you have this stuff here, you've got minus the D here, you will have less than 100%. So that doesn't have 100% atom economy, so that has waste, and that is not green. So if you look through a couple of these, there is just endless ways to look at something that's being done currently and how you could possibly go about fixing it up, which would be a perfect IA. So if I just choose a random one, how about that? Just click anywhere on this board. Design a safer chemicals. Chemical products should be designed to affect their desired function while minimizing toxicity. So you could look at trying to create a chemical that does the same job but is not as toxic. You could look at organic products and see whether they're as effective as non-organic products. For that one, let's just jump to a random one over here. The last one, that one's quite a more weird one. Inherently safer chemistry for accident prevention. So substances and the form of substance used in a chemical process should be chosen to minimize the potential for chemical accidents. So you can even look at chemicals that are less dangerous. So maybe instead of using a volatile substance such as ethanol, see if it works with water or a lower concentration of ethanol. So there's an endless number of ways you can modify something that's currently going on in order to be more green in some sense. So that's green chemistry. So congratulations, you have finished, and all the best for your exams.